Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Mr. Pugh, did you have any announcements for today? I'm going to take that as a no. And before I jump into, oh, look at Mr. Pugh. Long time no see. You in the office? Whoa, nice, I guess. All right. So before we jump into the rest of office logistics, any questions from yesterday?
No.
All right. So we're going to jump right in then. So we were talking about office logistics, and I think this chapter or domain just has a lot of little bitty things in it. So I think they tried to look at it from all aspects, but you can tell that a large portion of it has to do with record keeping of some type, whether it's the financial side, bookkeeping, all of that. I will tell you, every time I see the word bookkeeping, I think I'm going to have a little stroke because this is one area of my business that just nightmares. But for the medical office, on the CMAA exam, they are expecting you to know more of an old school bookkeeping approach where you're literally kind of writing out money that you take in, money that's paid out. Um, and so there's a few guidelines you need to know in a manual system. So number one, obviously, if you're handwriting, you have to have good penmanship. And I think I mentioned to you all yesterday that I write like I wrote in kindergarten. So for example, this is something that I'm actually writing now. This is a patient chart that I was going through, and you can see how big my words are on the screen. Like the word dehydration is on a almost on a line by itself. But anyway, but you can also read my handwriting as well. Um, in situations where you make an error in this paper-based bookkeeping system, it is important that you understand how to acknowledge an error and then what happens after that. So for example, and even in paper medical records, instead of like erasing something or using whiteout, what we would do is draw a single line through the error, put your initials, put the date, write the word error, and then next to it, write what you meant to be in that spot. And the reason that we don't want to like darken it out or put white out on it is because whoever comes behind you, they should be able to see what you originally wrote and then what you made the correction to reflect. So for example, in medical records, sometimes we will query the provider about something that's incomplete, unclear. And usually what we have them do is write an addendum to that note so that, again, when an external person comes in and looks at the record, they know. So same thing if somebody's trying to use a calculator to come up with or double check your work, they should be able to see if you made a mistake and what it is. And I was laughing about this calculator on the screen, and believe it or not, I still have an old school calculator because sometimes I need to calculate some things. Sometimes physicians will document something in millimeters, but I need it to be in centimeters, and sometimes I may have to do a conversion. All right, so in a manual bookkeeping system, we have to make sure that everything lines up properly, that we have a way to check and balance everything. So for example, if you have a canceled check, you should keep that. If you are receiving checks, you want to endorse them immediately. Why do you want to endorse them immediately? Because you want the back of the check to reflect the organization's name so that it's deposited into the organization's account, instead of, and this is unfortunate, somebody taking it to their friend at a local currency exchange or some other check cashing outfit, and they are able to cash that check. Today in 2021, we are seeing more electronic funds transfers. So that eliminates having to receive paper checks in the mail. And then organizations that do receive paper checks, they typically today are going to some type of lockbox, and then somebody who is in a position and is responsible for getting that information, there's a whole process for actually capturing and documenting that. And then when we have bills, we want to pay them promptly. And I know you may be thinking, what do you mean? Of course they're going to pay their bills promptly because they got a lot of money. And that is not true. They are juggling bills just like the rest of us. And I think that the pandemic showed us that big companies live paycheck to paycheck just like us. And so, hold on one second, guys. You try State Farm? I'm sorry? Do you try State Farm? Is it State Farm's right here? Yes. Okay. Okay, everybody. I'm sorry about that. Somebody came to my business door asking me if they could print out a lease or something. That was kind of weird. All right. So businesses, healthcare business is a business like every other business. All right. So those are some basic bookkeeping guidelines. Then most offices will have a petty cash fund. And the purpose of the petty cash fund is to have monies available for small incidental expenses. So postage, if somebody needs to park. Now, if they got to park downtown Chicago, I don't know if the petty cash fund is going to be enough, because usually petty cash is $50 or less. And so you park downtown, depending on how many hours you are and what parking lots you're in, it's easily about $50, $60. Anyway, so this is not for something like you need to pay somebody's cell phone bill, because the cell phone bill is definitely not the dollar amount of petty cash. So petty cash is usually kept in some type of locked drawer, safe, something like that. And when money is taken out, we have to keep track of that. So usually a voucher or some sort is issued. So $25 given to Angela Henderson for a cake for somebody had a baby or something, and we decided to use it for that. Every organization is different. I think today, 2021, you don't see a lot of offices with the petty cash fund. However, it is still a concept that you are supposed to be familiar with. All right, so when we talk about financial records, one of the types of financial records that you will see is a day sheet. And as the name implies, this is a record of today's transactions. So for example, this says June 25th, Y. So that's all of the patients that we saw on June 25th, what we charged them, what the adjustments were, what the, if there was a credit, and then what the net change was. So this is where some people get into trouble because they will get the patient's copay, and let's say it's cash, and they try to pocket it. But generally, when patients make a co-payment, we give them a receipt. And so today in 2021, those receipts are computer generated, or they're in some type of book where when you write out the receipt, underneath, there's a carbon copy, and that carbon copy allows us the way to, at the end of the day, double check that if 10 little strips are missing, that we have those payments. And it's unfortunate, some people are just opportunists. Now, when we're talking about accounting systems, this reminds me of a checkbook. Now, there's not a lot of people today who actually sit down and balance a checkbook. In fact, whenever I have to write a check, I got to figure out where my checkbook is in order to write the check. And it's generally a situation where I need to write it like right then and there, because, you know, again, it's 2021. You can send a check from your bank directly to a person. And depending on if it's going to a person or if it's going to a business, if it's going to a person, it could take, you know, 5 or 6 days to get there. And of course, we got Zelle, Quick Pay, Cash App, and all those other things. But if we're doing our basic bookkeeping or accounting systems, there's two approaches. So first, there is the single entry system. And in the first column, you see the income. And on the right column, you see all of the expenses. So when you look at this income versus expenses, what's the first thing you notice?
More expense than income.
Yeah, so again, just like our bills at home, they got more going out than they have coming in. Then we have on this other side, and this is the single entry approach. The double entry approach, here, you not only have your income and your expenses, but you also have 2 additional columns for your assets. That's things that you own, and then things that you have as a liability. All right, and those are usually like loans. So for example, during this pandemic, anybody that was a business owner was able to apply for one of those PPP loans or EDIL loans that the government was, I'm not gonna say giving away, but some people thought it was a giveaway. I think we're gonna see a lot of people in jail the next 12 months because they falsified records to get these loans. But anyway, so if you got a loan from the federal government or anybody that is not forgivable, that is a liability, right? Because that's money that you owe and you got to pay back. Now, this is not an accounting test, but again, this test to some extent has some old school processes. All right, then the next concept is about invoices versus a statement. And I was trying to figure out if I have some in front of me. So an invoice, and I'm going to use myself as an example. So as a business owner, I order supplies and other ink, paper, and I can get that item one of two ways. I can go directly into Office Max, place the order, and take it with me, and I pay for it right then and there. Or I can order from a company that is going to let me place the order, that is going to invoice me for the items, and then they give me like 30 days to pay. So on that previous statement where they talked about paying the bills promptly, this is important because we have to make sure that if they give us that 30-day period to make a payment, that we actually are making the payment. And one of the things that I try to do, and it does not always work out, is when I get the bill in the mail, I try to pay it immediately, because that's what the organizations that talk about building credit say is a best practice, is to pay it right away, because that will allow you to get more credit. And guess, like, as a side note, I think kids growing up today, they don't see the importance of credit. And you're probably thinking, well, why is this a topic here? My daughter is moving to Texas next week, and she's 22. We've been talking to her about the importance of credit. And so when she went to apply for these apartments, they ran her credit, and luckily she had done what she needed to do, because we wasn't helping. We'll buy you a mattress or something, a bed, but we're not co-signing for no apartment down in Houston, Texas. So same thing with our medical practices. And what some organizations do is they'll open up accounts with all different types of vendors. But again, you don't pay these folks, they're going to do what's called COD, cash on delivery. We're not going to extend any credit to you. And that's why prompt payment is required, is something we should do. Statements are when you've provided a service to the patient, and then you're sending them a statement for their balance. And so that balance could be a co-insurance payment. So co-insurance is generally after the patient or the insurance company has paid. All right, the next part of, I'm putting my bills back because I got sad. Because then I got sad because one of them is due in 7 days, and I was like, whoa. Anyway, another aspect of office logistics is the post office and mailing stuff. Mail deliveries. So we do have some things that we send out via the mail. We talked about statements, we may be getting bills for office supplies. We may get some lab reports and hospital reports sent to us via US mail. You don't see this as much today because of things being electronic, but remember, for purposes of this test, they're really approaching this from a manual perspective as opposed to more automated. And so that's why I'm trying to bring in some of the automated concepts in addition to what you need to know for the test. Today we can get reports sent to us electronically via the computer, or we can go into a system and pull down that report and do one of two things. We can push it over to another system so that it appears in the patient's health record, or we gotta print it and then scan it into the patient's record. And it just depends on, again, the setup. So when we receive mail in the office, we want to sort it. So sorting the mail looks like, not this picture. This picture reminds me of all the mail that was missing during the pandemic. But when we get the mail, that's not, it's not funny, right? Because people was waiting on medications and all kind of stuff. So it was a sad reality. But anyway, when mail comes, we should be sorting it and giving it to who it belongs to. Now, I know you probably are thinking, right? Who's getting all that mail in the office today? Well, you might get journal articles. Again, if we're purchasing something, we might get an invoice. And so when that mail comes, we want to separate it, organize it, and then send it to whoever it needs to go to. All right, when we're mailing out things, we need to be familiar with the different classes of mail. Now, I'm going to tell you, every time I go to the post office, I got to ask the question about which one is which. So first class mail is mail that is sealed. I'm gonna use my envelope as an example. That is sealed or unsealed, and it's a letter that is either typed or handwritten, and it can be a postcard, it can be a business letter like this. And then we have priority mail. And with each different class of mail, there may be a fee associated with it. There may be different types of tracking. And then we have standard mail. And this, I call this the junk mail, but it's advertising, promotional items. And each of these classes of mail have some type of cost and special features. Now, on the NHA exam, they expect you to know the difference between the first class, the priority, and then the standard mail. Of note, if you compare first class to priority, you also need to know that first class mail is generally under 13 ounces, and then priority mail is over 13 ounces. I'm the type of person that hates going to the post office. And so they have this little machine that you can, sit there and play around with. It's like a puzzle to me, because sometimes you push a button, then you get another question, and then eventually you can mail what you need to mail. But they're asking you questions to determine which approach you want to use. So they give you all your options, and usually it's like money. If you wanted to get there in 3 days, this is how much it costs. And then they have some other types of mail that's not listed in the on the test, but just something you should be aware of. So yesterday I needed to mail this book to somebody, and this name, let me see, on this book should look familiar. This is the ICD-10. Hey, I feel like that boomerang. I don't know if that's how it works. But anyway, this is the ICD-10 CM manual, and you can see how thick it is. So I needed to mail this to one of my coders. And so I went into the post office, and the lady said, how do you want to mail it? I said, well, it's a book, so I want to mail it media mail. And what that did was take the charge from totally by the weight, and made it like a $6 fee, and they'll get it Saturday, Monday, but I wasn't in a hurry for them to use it because they don't need it until June 1st, which is why I started mailing it earlier. And then we have what are known as special services, which are divided into insured, registered, and then certified. So with these special services, this is where you're going to be perhaps paying additional monies to insure the item that you're delivering, or have a way for patients to sign. So this book, for example, costs $114 for this one book. So the media mail only covered insurance for up to $50 for the book. So I paid an additional, I have to look at my receipt, but I paid an additional fee to give me the coverage of, I said $114. I didn't want to do that high. I just did a flat $100 for insurance so that at least if it got lost, I could, get another one. Registered mail, certified mail is all about making sure that the other person signs off that they received it. If you've ever received something from the IRS, sometimes it'll come regular mail, and if they want to make sure that you sign for it, they'll send it to you certified mail. We use certified mail in our office when we want to make sure that patients get something. So for example, when we decide to fire a patient or decide to discontinue the relationship with the patient, we will send them a certified letter to basically let them know that, we're firing you. And then we have proof because they signed for it. And so what happens is once they sign for it, the post office then gives us the proof that they signed for it. So we put that into the medical record. So if the patient says they never got it, we can say, oh, yes, you did. All right, so we just finished 3 of your 6 domains. So I'm gonna pause again to see if anybody has questions so far. Everybody's so quiet today. Y'all don't have enough caffeine today?
I'm just listening.
Just listening.
Mm-hmm.
This is supposed to be an active participant in this class.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I am going to put something into the chat box. I'm going to ask that you click on it. And this is an activity that you are going to work on. Everybody's on a computer, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you can either click on that link or you can copy and paste it. Oh, and let me stop the recording. And for those people who are not here today, you will have to do this activity next week. So this is a 20-question exercise on scheduling. Take some time to work on this without the use of notes. And then once you're done, type done in the chat box. And was everybody able? I'm going to stop the recording.